Happy, successful franchise owners. Today on Franchise Envy, Dr. Steve Nutty, 100% chiropractic franchise owner.
Up next.
And he has t-shirts on the back, best crack in town. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're really going off the deep end there. But hey, it grabs people's attention. They ask him about it all the time. So marketing's marketing, right?
The secret to scale is not really a secret.
And so when I brought that up before I ever even opened a practice, I could see Jason's eyes kind of light up because that was his entrepreneurial spirit. And he said, man, I want you to open more than I do.
Dr. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lance. Excited to be here and really excited to share some experience and whatnot with our viewers here.
Well, I love that. And how long have you been a franchisee of 100% Chiropractic?
Yeah, so I've been a franchise owner for 14 years now. My first franchise will be having its 13th birthday here in just a couple months.
Holy cow.
Franchise. I know, right? Time
13
flies,
already.
man.
13 years
13
old.
Years. Teenager now.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's wild. I joined the company and had about a year process of getting rolling and getting started to find location, do build out, and then opened our doors. And man, it's been amazing.
Yeah, brick and mortar businesses, one disadvantage, it takes longer to get opened.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to find the right location. Don't just pick one on a whim, but once you do, man, and get those doors open, it's serving the community and building the relationships. So it's been just, again, amazing ever since.
Awesome. And clearly they're helping you with that real estate site selection, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a lot of software and mapping software that tells us best locations and demographics and population densities and all the amazing things that they can do with the resources they have.
I use that same software to select the perfect wife. It works every time.
Perfect. You got to share that one with a lot of people, I'm sure.
The second time, Steve, not the first time. So is this your first business?
It is, yes. I was lucky enough to be introduced to 100% Chiropractic while I was still in school. And so I kind of learned about them, got to meet the founders and owners of the company, and man, their vision, their knowledge and understanding of running business, not just healthcare and chiropractic, just blew me away. And it aligned perfectly with the future that I dreamt of. And so I said, I'm doing it. So right out of school, I was able to jump right on board.
So they went to your chiropractic school to recruit, knowing some of you might want to jump in.
Actually, no. It's interesting. When I, again, having been a part of this company now for 14 years, the company itself will be 21 years old in August. So, my office is going to be a teenager. The company is going to legally be able to drink now this year. And it's the evolution of it. But when I joined 14 years ago, there was only 3 offices open. It wasn't a franchise. It was a group of doctors, all based out of Colorado Springs, that had, again, like vision, like-mindedness of how we wanted the population to view chiropractic, how we wanted to package an amazing industry and career and deliver that to the public so they see it in a different light, right? And so I actually got a call from a friend of mine who graduated about 6 months prior to me, who moved out to Colorado, had met Drs. Jason and Vanessa Helfrich, the founders and CEOs of our company, and as soon as she met them and saw what they were doing, she's like, I want to be a part of it. And he asked her, do you know anyone else that might be interested? And she thought of me immediately and said, I got to call Dr. Steve Nutty. And so called me up, and I ended up connecting with them, and man, the rest is history.
That's awesome. So you know that the typical franchise owner is not necessarily a technician. You had aspirations, clearly, to go to chiropractic school, and it just so happened you found a chiropractic franchise. Most people end up in a senior home care franchise, a McDonald's, whatever, and they have zero experience. So you're unique. I love that.
It is, yeah, and our profession's unique, right? I think that unlike a burger place or a facility of homes living and things like that, it's a very unique profession, a niche profession, if you will, that we're trying to bring to the masses. Something that hasn't changed in decades is chiropractors are really only seeing about 7 to 10% of the population, which is crazy to me, right? I mean, we all have a spine, we all have a nervous system. People are now starting to look more into how can I naturally stay healthy and not rush to a medication, rush to a surgery. And honestly, like that's the core of chiropractic is your body has the ability to be healthy and heal itself if it's communicating the right way. And that's what we help people do every day.
Yeah, awesome. So why did you get into a franchise? At one point, did you think to yourself, maybe I can do this on my own?
Yeah, you know what, Lance? The reason I got into 100% chiropractic or franchise model was because I realized very early on as I was finishing chiropractic school, putting together a business plan to say, how can I open Nutty Family Chiropractic or something along those lines, that I didn't have business experience, right? I didn't know when someone walks through my doors, well, what's the first thing I have to do? I knew how to be a doctor. I knew how to connect with people. I knew how to take care of them when they're on my table and I see what's wrong with their spine. But beyond that, I really didn't have experience. I didn't have the know-how. And so when I met Doctors Jason and Vanessa, that's what they had a ton of experiences in. They ran restaurants prior to going to chiropractic school. They had been in franchises of restaurants as well. And they were able to take this business knowledge they had, apply it to chiropractic and say, no one's doing this, right? In our industry, so many chiropractors were, Jones Family Chiropractic, and it was in the living room of a house that they bought, and they rented out the studio apartment upstairs, had a table and a computer, and that was it. And so as much as, you can be effective in taking care of someone's spine that way, it's tough to build a large or super profitable business out of a living room in something like healthcare. I'm not saying we can't do that in tech or something else, but when it comes to, brick and mortar servicing of people, it's a lot harder to do out of a living room with just a table and a computer.
So I guess the first thing you don't want to say when you're new at this is, hey, what's cracking?
Hey, whatever works, right? I actually have a buddy who has a practice up in Pennsylvania, and he has T-shirts on the back, best crack in town. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're really going off the deep end there. But hey, it grabs people attention. They ask them about it all the time. So marketing's marketing, right?
I appreciate humor, of course. So Dr. Steve, what was your all-in investment when you first started? And did you commit to one location? And I understand now you're conquering the world.
Yeah, so my all-in investment in the beginning, a great part of 100% is I didn't have to come to the table with money. I was a student. I was fresh out of school. I had student loan debt. I've always worked. I worked in college while I was a full scholarship athlete. I worked all the way through chiropractic school, bartending, coaching Clemson University's hockey team while I was in chiropractic school as well. And so I always made money, and I had money, but not to the level of, let me open a $250,000 business, a $500,000 business. Banks would look at me and say, okay, well, you don't really have a financial history, right? And so the great part about 100% is they helped me find financing. They helped me find investors that were coming in and bringing money to the table to allow me to pay for build outs and equipment and x-ray and all of that. And then to purchase my franchise, they were able to actually finance me in-house, which was amazing. And it was something no other companies in our industry were doing. At this moment, if you do have the funds, you can come to the table and buy a franchise for $50,000, which is a really good number, right? Now to open an office, as far as what's the capital needed, right now it's between $250 and $350 to get an office from, all right, here's a gray or vanilla shell location to what I'm sitting in right now, which is 2,500 square feet of just high-end, high-quality furniture and cabinetry and aesthetics that we want to really promote when we're promoting our brand.
Yeah, so are there SBA loans as well available for 100% chiropractic?
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of people now, especially since COVID, SBA has been much more popular for new entrepreneurs, right? A lot of times previously to COVID, which was me, right? SBA loans, they wanted to see, all right, we want to see 2-3 years of tax returns of your business before, we'll consider that. New startups, It was a little bit tougher. But now there definitely are a lot of initiatives by the SBA that I've seen of people are able to get those funds ahead of time, come in, buy the franchise, not need to go find additional investors, and can fund the opening of their practice right away.
Yeah, the SBA is generally, while it is very cumbersome and there's a lot of paperwork and it takes up to 90 days, it's usually easy for all other franchise brands. When it comes to medical related stuff, sometimes there's extra steps in there because they get concerned as to who's actually running this. But talk a
Yes.
little bit about what you're doing now with these locations, because you're building an empire. How many do you have your hands in at this point?
So at this very moment, I'm a partial or full owner of 5 different locations. I also am a consultant on another 9 locations right now, and a 10th that's on the way. Which it's a different and unique role. And so going into this, and I know we spoke a little bit about how I got into 100%. One of the things that I loved is when I met with Drs. Jason and Vanessa, I said, I don't want just one location. I want to open multiple. I always knew that I didn't want to be married to one location, seeing patients, because number one, it's limiting, right? It's a service industry. There's only so many people that I can see in a given day with the hours that I work, right?
Yeah.
If I want to do bigger things than that, I either need to raise my prices, I need to hire people to do the same service in the same location, or I need to expand. I need to have multiple locations. And so when I brought that up before I ever even opened a practice, I could see Jason's eyes kind of light up because that was his entrepreneurial spirit. And he said, man, I want you to open more than I do. And I said, all right, I like this, right? You're not going to limit me. You're not going to suppress me. And so as I got into this and said, okay, what's my next step? I was able to go into a consulting and managing partner role, which meant when people like me graduate school, they're on fire for chiropractic, they're excited to be an entrepreneur and business owner, but they don't have that knowledge and know-how. They get matched up with people like me now that have been doing this for well over a decade that can guide them, right? That can say, let me help you find your location. Let me find you an investor if you don't have it, if you didn't get the SBA loan. Let me train you on the business systems so that you understand the moment someone walks through the doors, here's what happens. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, getting them to a signed up customer that you're changing their life and driving revenue into your practice. And so I started doing that about 6.5 years ago, and it's just been growing and growing and growing. And 2.5 years ago, decided to buy my second location, which was, again, we bought the license from 100% and then opened a brand new brick and mortar down in Davie, Florida. So I'm up here north of Atlanta. I also own an office down in Davie, Florida, just north of Miami, which is pretty cool thing to say. When people ask, like, well, where do you own? I own one in Texas. I own 2 in Florida, one in North Carolina, and then one here in Georgia, which is, it's a really exciting thing. And they're like, you must travel up. Not really, right? I go check in on those locations about once a year right now. So it's not even requiring me to be on the plane nonstop, but I can constantly track their numbers, see their schedule. I'm in communication, obviously, with my clinic directors nonstop. But it's just a next evolution of my growth as an entrepreneur as well.
The secret to scale is not really a secret. It's pull yourself out of the business. Once you replace yourself, the sky's the limit. Look at what you're doing. I'm proud of you.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's one of those things that it always feels like it's so far away, right? Until one day you wake up and you're like, I didn't go into my office for the last 2 weeks. Like that was crazy. Like I've been working from home and I've been doing
nothing
this,
burned down.
That's right. And guess what? Bank account's still doing well, and people are still getting seen, and staff's getting paid.
Yep.
And then when I do walk in, it's a celebration. Like, oh, Dr. Steve's here. I'm like, hey guys, right? I got patients going, where you been? They think I'm traveling the world. I'm like, just spending time with my kids, being around my family. It's amazing to be able to do that.
So clearly, size was not a factor when you selected 100% Chiropractic. They were a small company, but you found a lot of great elements that were already in place and a blueprint and a playbook that you were very satisfied with. There's a lot of people that come to me as a franchise broker, and I represent hundreds of great brands, and they look at me and like, I don't want a small brand. I want a big established brand that everybody knows the name. And I clearly explain to them that most cases those brands you won't be able to get. They're going to be sold out in your area. So clearly size was not a factor for you.
You know, I say no, but in one hand, yes. And I say it this way. Size was a factor because I saw the potential, right? I saw the vision, I saw the leadership, and I saw the people that were in the small group that when I joined were already there and were getting ready to be there. And when I saw that, I had the foresight to say, man, this thing is going to blow up. Right? And I didn't know if it was going to be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. And to watch that come to fruition and get beyond 100 locations and just growing like this, size almost mattered more because I could say, well, shoot, I have pick of the litter, right? I can go wherever I want. There's no locked out locations. I can go where I want to go. And now for new franchisees, the cool part is now they're getting that established brand. We're the second largest chiropractic franchise in the world and growing, right? And that's a pretty exciting thing. We're getting other franchises and former employees of the one franchise that's larger than us in chiropractic saying, hey, I want to pivot. I want to come to this company instead because they see what we're doing. We're really trying to rock the boat a little bit when it comes to chiropractic and not just be the, secondary doc over here popping and cracking, but medical experts that are showing people how they can change their life.
Fabulous. What was the hardest part? If you think way back to when you got started, it's a lot of people I work with are apprehensive of what does training look like? What does the first 6 months look like? When do I start making money? So if you think back, what was the hardest part for you in launching your franchise?
Yes, I think the hardest part for me in launching my franchise was just that we had awesome business systems, but we didn't have a dialed in marketing plan to get people in our doors. And so 13, 14 years ago, I was at farmers markets. I was doing dinners with the docs. I literally went door to door and introduced myself to my community because as an entrepreneur, like, whatever, it's my business, right? I have no shame to knock on someone's door and say, hey, here's who I am, here's what I'm all about. I knew once people walked through my doors, met me, understood that I care and I actually give a shit about you when you walk through, and I'm going to help you achieve your goals, not about me and my goals, they were going to love it here and they were going to stay. But it was hard not being from here. I'm from upstate New York, and my wife is from here in Georgia. I'm the extrovert of the couple. And so when we get down here in a big city, Atlanta, and I know no one, it's like, okay, well, let's start marketing. And they had marketing playbooks and stuff like that, but it all was literally grassroots. It's pounding the pavement, it's meeting people, it's networking, it's all the things that I recommend for any entrepreneur or franchisee to do no matter what. But the evolution of that in the company is what makes it so cool to see. Now with social media marketing, with much bigger buying power with 100 locations and a much larger company and income, we can now approach these larger firms that are maximizing our SEO, all of a sudden dialing in Google. So when they are Googling, like, what is chiropractic, or who's the chiropractor near me, best chiro in my area, we're showing up on top all the time. But as a single franchise owner or a 5 franchise owner, I'm not having to front the tens of thousands of dollars to get that company that, Microsoft says, oh yeah, here, whatever. Or Chick-fil-A says, of course, here, I got this, because they got the millions to do it, right? Dr. Steve Nutty doesn't want to put $1 million into that. But as a company, when we all are putting towards these marketing efforts, man, it's just made it so much easier. So now offices are opening with 30, 40, 50, 60 new patients on their books before they open their doors. When I started, if we got 15, it was like, damn, that was a good month, right? So it's eliminated so many of the challenges that I had with new franchisees now, which is really exciting.
Awesome. I got into Wingstop early. One of my first store opened only doing $5,000 opening week. By the time I developed others, I was getting up to over 30,000 opening week. So
Love it.
I got in early. Try to get a Wingstop now. Good luck with that. So what's the best thing that's resulted from being a franchisee for 100% Chiropractic?
Yeah, the list is endless, right? The best things about being a franchisor that have come from being a franchisee with 100%, number one for me, it's the people, right? They're genuinely friends that I consider family, that will be that way for life. That I've developed over these last decades, that people genuinely care about you. It's not just a lip service. It's not just this name that's on a list of someone in our corporate office. I personally know every single person that works there. I know probably 80% of our franchisees personally, not just because I've been here so long, but twice a year we get together as a company and we have these tribes. And it's the culture of this company that sets it apart from anything I've ever been a part of. I'm an athlete. I've played sports my whole life, and ice hockey is my primary sport. Anybody that's played ice hockey knows we're all a little different, right? We have no shame. We have no filter 90% of the times. We like to go punch each other in the face here and there. Most people don't.
And you have teeth, though.
Then they're all real. How about that, right? Means I got a good right hook. And with all of that, there's a special bond that comes with it, right? And so I can tell you, I moved to any town, I joined a hockey team, I got friends that are going to be as close as friends I've had for decades. And this company has somehow replicated that, where when people come in, they're accepted like family. I literally spent 2 hours on the phone with a guy, a franchisee, that I have nothing to do with. I'm not his consultant, I'm not anything other than he came to Tribe, we met, he told me his struggles, I said, let me help. And we spent 2 hours going over what we call our empowerment session of how he delivers the message to a new client. And at the end, he sent me, flattering emails of like, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've never had feedback like this. It's just, but that's what happens. It's not just me. It's this whole company that has that. So that's number one. Number two is honestly, it's being able to design my life. Financial freedom. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old that I get to see and be around. They have awards at school, I can go, right? When my daughter wants to do horseback riding, sure, let's go. I don't care what time I leave, I can go do that, and I'm not stuck, oh, nope, can't take this time off. I saw Dana White said something the other day, I literally got a message from a buddy of mine. It was a clip of him saying, you want to start your own business because you want your, make your own hours, you want to do this, you want to do that? Just realize there is no Christmas, there is no Thanksgiving, there is no Easter. And to a fact, that's true, right? We're never not working, but we also have the ability to prioritize what we want to prioritize because we're not answering to anyone but ourselves, right? And so that's what 100% has given me is that designing my own life, the financial freedom, the freedom of my time, and friends that I call family for the rest of my life.
Amazing response. And I actually have a new term that fits number two in what you just said. I don't even call it freedom anymore. I call it free do. You are free to do whatever you want. You build your schedule, see your family anytime you want. You just have to plan your work. And as you know, people with W-2 jobs can't even plan where they work from in most cases. Now everybody's going back to work. Look what's happening these days. There's no remote work so much anymore. So that's amazing. So let's switch gears.
Yeah.
Secrets to your success. I want to know at least one secret to your success as a franchisee for 100% Chiropractic.
Secrets to success. So I'm going to give you two of my secrets to success. Right? Number one is authenticity. You need to be true to yourself and who you are. If you try to be someone else, if someone comes in, I'm trying to be what I heard another doctor say, or I'm trying to be that personality of someone else, it's never going to come through as genuine. And people inherently are going to look right through that. They're going to see through it. They're going to see that it's fake. They're not going to respond to people that are not being genuine, right? And so number one, be true to who you are. Be true to your profession, whatever it is. I don't care if it's flipping burgers. I don't care if it's slinging magazines. I don't care if it's chiropractic. You need to be true to who you are, your heart, your philosophy, your mission. That has to stay true, number one, first and foremost. Number two, humility. Being an athlete, I've always been able to outwork anybody, right? I'm not fast enough, run more. I'm not strong enough, lift more weights, right? There was always the easy step, and you could always improve by just working harder. Sometimes in franchising, in business, you don't know what you don't know. And there are amazing systems and training in this company, but if you're struggling with something, if you need help with something, it's not the time to just shrink and hold it all in and try to figure it out. We have an amazing network that you reach out to. And when I learned that lesson of stop being like, I'm going to prove everybody that I can do it and I'm going to be the best, right? And started to say, hey, I need help with this. And they were there to help. And those tough things became easy. Those easy things became even easier. It's understanding to utilize the network you have and don't be ashamed to say, hey, I need help. So those are my two secrets to success that have launched me to where I am now.
Dr. Steve, why are others not as successful as you? And let's just throw it out on the table there. I don't care if it's McDonald's. It doesn't matter what the brand is. There's going to be a bottom 10% of low performers. So what's going on there?
There's obviously a lot of franchisees that are not successful, and I think it can be a few different things. The most common that I see is, number one, they try to reinvent the wheel. They take a system that's proven and is working, and again, I don't care if it's McDonald's or 100% chiropractic, and they don't follow it to the level that they should. And it could be lack of training. It could be, and again, not necessarily lack of training of the franchisee, but maybe of the staff, right? And so when people walk through the doors, if they don't get the experience that they're intended to have, it's not going to result in the result you're looking for, right? And if that's McDonald's, maybe they walk in and the place is dirty and people are rude and the food's undercooked, or it's wrapped up weird and all of a sudden the burger's halfway off the bun, right? And so again, for a simple analogy, you also walk into one that's like clockwork and it's pristine, everything's cleanly mopped, a smile on their face, and you get it, and it looks like the one right off the commercial of everything's perfect. That's a completely different experience of McDonald's, right? So when people walk through my doors, I know they're getting greeted the way they should be greeted. I know that my staff has done the research before they walk through the doors. They call them by their name. As they go through our process, they know their kids, they know what they're remembering, they know what they need to ask, so that I can make the same kind of connections with my patients that walk through. So I think that's a huge one, is they try to reinvent the wheel instead of sticking to the proven systems that are there. And the second one I'll give you is the people, right? Systems run businesses, people run systems. And so if you don't have the right people, but you have the right systems, it's not going to be successful. If you have the right people, but not the right systems, it's not going to be successful. So you really have to have both, right? And so for me, in my practices, it's about building family, it's building relationships with my team, that they are all bought into the same level as any doctor that works with me. The doctors are easy, right? Doctors are on a mission to change the world, help people, but to get someone that's scheduling and collecting payments and doing a tour of the office and things like that to be as bought in as another doctor can take work. It takes pouring into them and building team camaraderie and doing things together outside the office to make them know that what they do matters, right? And so I think, again, that's another big one, is just the people that are in the office.
Love that answer. So how much can a great franchisee do in revenue at 100% chiropractic? Everybody listening at some point is like, how much money can I make? So we're getting to that. So talk about revenue. How much is a great franchisee doing in one location, revenue-wise?
Yeah, and so it's something also that attracted me to 100% is starting to understand what's possible, right? When we talk revenue, when we talk any industry, there's standards there. And when I was going through school, I remember getting my mind blown when I visited a chiropractor that was doing about $100,000 a month. And I'm like, $100,000 a month. And coming from a very lower middle class family, my dad, I think the most he had ever made was like $105,000 in a year as a salary in an insurance industry. And that was like, whoa, he made six figures. Like, we were blown away by that. But most of his career was probably around $70,000, and we were a family of four, and we had no worries, right? So to hear a chiropractor was making over $100,000 a month blew me away, and I'm a student, right? So as I get into 100% chiropractic and we start to grow my practice and start to generate revenue of my own, we hit a lot of these milestones that were blowing me away, right? I remember the first time I hit $100,000 in a quarter was like, holy cow, look what I just did. Right? And then I remember the first time I hit $100,000 in a month, and I was like, holy cow, look what I just did. And right now, if it's run correctly and you're following the systems, you're following the process, you have the right people there, I mean, we're seeing offices do $1.8, $1.9 million in revenue a year, and still sitting at like a 40 to 50% margin, which is a pretty darn great way to run a single location.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, because my next question was, what kind of net income or EBITDA can you do out of these businesses?
Yeah, and so when we look at that net income, it's across the board can be that 40 to 50% margin. And the best part about it, like I mentioned in the beginning, is you're not limited to one. right? And so, yes, even if you might not have the number one office in the company, if you have 5 that are all top 50%, right, which is not the hardest thing to do, you could be blowing any 1, 2, 3 of those offices out of the water. So there's no limits to it. And that's the coolest part. When you find a scalable business, man, there's no cap. You can literally take it to as big as you want.
Amazing. What's next for you?
I'm going to continue on the path I'm on, right? And people have asked me this a lot over my career, as like, would you do it again if you were a graduate? I'm like, absolutely, because I already am. Right? I'm buying new ones. I'm opening new ones. Of course I would, right? Or what would you do different? You get a lot, right? And I'm like, honestly, I would have just probably tried to expand sooner, right? And you never, I think it's like becoming a parent. You're never ready for it until you're a parent, right? Your kids come, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then you're a dad and you figure it out,
Steve,
right?
Being a parent is the worst because there's no manual. At least there's the manual for a franchise. That's right.
There absolutely is. And honestly, the bigger we get and the more dialed we get in our systems, the easier it gets, right? And so it's why I've continued to open 1, 2, 3 offices, whether as a consultant or as an owner, every year for the last several years. We have one that should be opening by the end of Q1, beginning of Q2 this year over in Spokane, Washington. So that'll be our newest location under my umbrella. I have 2 other doctors that are in the queue, if you will. They're getting ready to start training in either my office or my business partner, Dr. William, down in Tallahassee, Florida. We're starting to do a lot of joint ventures, which is great because just like when you have to get yourself out of your primary location if you want to start expanding, when you want to expand at a massive level, there's limits to your time too, right? So if I want to start opening 4 to 5 a year, for a single person, my wife would probably be like, I'm out of here. You don't have any time for me, right? But if I can split that with a business partner, we can do that together. It's the same amount of time I've been spending now, but now we're doubling the impact we can have and the growth we can have. So my next steps is stay on this path and just pedal to the metal here.
So what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs? You had a distinct advantage, I would say, that you set yourself up the right way. You had specific interests, the stars aligned, chiropractic school, and you moved on. You know, if anybody out there has ever read the book, The E-Myth, the technicians are usually not very good business owners. Just because somebody was a great plumber and was fed up with plumbing company number 1, 2, and 3 that they work for, doesn't mean they're going to make a great business owner. So you've done something really incredible. But what would you offer in the way of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs? Obviously, besides working with me so I can help them find the right franchise, what would you say?
Yeah, so some advice that I would give to an aspiring entrepreneur, right, is number 1, find something that you are truly interested in, right? Because if you're going to be spending the time, spending the money to grow a business, you want it to be something that interests you. That you're not going to get bored with and tired with, right? Chiropractic, obviously, a little bit of a different industry than a lot of non-technicians that may be looking for a business to run. But if they have interest in that, they don't have to be the chiropractor to be interested in healthcare and to be interested in wellness and natural wellness and things like that. The second part of that is find the vehicle that's going to get you to where you want to be. And honestly, Lance, that's where you come in. Because if I want to be a health industry owner, but I'm not a chiropractor, I'm not going to just go find a random business or start a random business and have that blueprint. But if I find a franchise that has the blueprint, or I have somebody to help me find a franchise, then that vehicle is already there. Now you have the gassed up car, the keys and the ignition, they're ready to go. You just got to step in, start it, and drive. Versus, okay, well, I got to go figure out how do I get there, what do I do, and how do I do a natural health business? Is it nutrition? Is it chiropractic? Is it laser? Is it a health spa? What is it?
Medical weight loss. I have a great medical weight loss brand.
Yeah, and so you got to find the vehicle, and that's where franchising is so incredible. It's there, it's mapped out for you, and it also gives you that expectation. Right? Because a lot of times we hear it all the time in business journals and, oh, you're not going to be profitable for at least 2 years and then you got to figure it out. Most people, if I'm being honest, don't have 2 years worth of side money to sit there and say, okay, well, I'm just going to dump money in for 2 years straight and I'm going to live there. Most say, well, okay, I might be able to have a reserve, which is highly recommended. Have some reserve, right? But knowing they need to be profitable much quicker than that.
Yeah. Dr. Steve Nutty, 100% chiropractic, amazing franchise owner. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Lance. I really appreciate it. This was a blast.
My pleasure.